Well, good morning and welcome to today's webinar on consuming big data, huge insights. So as we get started on today's host, Doug Cogswell, President and CEO of ADVIZOR Solutions. I have a number of years of experience in the business intelligence sector with extensive client consulting experience from beforehand with a lot of different companies and different industries, and background in science and MBA. And Mark Sear from EMC is joining us. Good morning, Mark.
Hi, how are you? I'm joining you from Israel today, where I had to travel to over the weekend, so I apologize.
Yeah, Mark does quite a bit of traveling, trying to get the message out about the value of big data. And as you can see, he's Chief Data Scientist at EMC Greenplum. And Mark, you might just sort of say a word about your experience in the space.
My experience really, I've been obviously in IT for 20 plus years, but I've been really focusing on big data and analytics for the last 2 years working for EMC Greenplum. And the reason I'm smiling in that picture there is because I'm not running a marathon like Doug is in the picture above.
So you're contrasting my pain with your happiness. Thanks, Mark.
Exactly. I've carried out extensive analysis into marathon runners, and it's not worth it. Next.
So today we're going to talk about an exciting topic. This whole big data has a lot of buzz. We're going to lay out a quick framework at the beginning, and then Mark's going to talk about some success stories and use cases, and we're going to talk about key success factors, that why this has worked. And then we'll have the webinar will run 30 to 40 minutes, and then we'll have 15 to 20 minutes at the end for Q&A and discussion. So a bit wordy, but to start this, I just looked up in Wikipedia. What is the definition of big data? Because we've heard things from all over the place. Consists of data sets that grow so large that they become awkward to work with using on-hand database management tools. Difficulties include capture, storage, search, sharing, analytics, and visualizing. This trend continues because the benefits of working with larger and larger data sets allow analysts to spot business trends, prevent diseases, compact. So there's a lot of value in this, but it can overwhelm the tools that people have been working with so far. They grow in size because they are increasingly being gathered by ubiquitous information sensing mobile devices, aerial sensor technologies, remote sensing, software logs, cameras, microphones, RFID readers, lots of things. And you've also got the whole Twitter, feeds, social relationship data that never existed before. That is voluminous, but hugely predictive and very powerful in understanding business. One current feature is the difficulty of working with it using relational databases and desktop statistics visualization packages. So it requires massively parallel software running on tens and hundreds, even thousands of servers. So today we're going to talk about this in terms of where it comes from, how to get it, how to store it, and then how to work with it. And from the Gartner group, their BI Summit, new models are emerging for consuming data. They call it the information buffet. So what has typically been much more structured decision-making driven by reports and things set up in the database is becoming much more autonomous and end-user focused. And what they would call controlled and qualified access is becoming much more open and unqualified access. So with this proliferation of big data, there needs to be ways to get it to the people who know the story, know the business, know the data to help it, use it to make decisions. There's 4 key driving technologies on the front end of this. Putting data in memory, and there's been a ton of advancement on that over the last few years. Getting it in forms where it's highly visual and interactive, and you'll see this as we go through today's webinar. Social software has allowed people to get access to and collect and mine and get contextual soft information that never existed before. And search technologies make it then easy to sort, index, get a handle on this contextual softer information. And from the Gartner perspective, this whole emergence on the front end is going to allow much greater penetration of end users by these front end tools. This is from a Wayne Eckerson report that came out in December. It's called In-Memory Analysis Delivering Insights at the Speed of Thought. We can make it available. It's up on our website. But his proxy is we have reporting, and at the sort of top end, there's top-down business intelligence, which is reports and monitoring for casual users. And there's a whole other set of things which he calls it the bottom-up analytics intelligence, which is analysis and prediction for the power user. And these are 2 different things. often in marketing they get merged together, but they actually serve quite different functions. This is easy to align and consistent. It's hard to build, politically charged, hard to change, expensive, schema heavy. This stuff at the bottom, the analytics, is quick to build, sandbox kind of stuff, politically uncharged, easy to change, low cost, harder to align, harder to get consistency, and schema light. And he points up here that reports beget analysis, and analysis begets reports. So these are two things that have an interplay, but they're very different. And his report goes into quite a bit of detail on taking this chart and fleshing it out. So we're not going to do that here. If you want more detail on these two very different technologies, how they interplay, who does which, and all of that, we recommend this in-memory analysis delivering insights at the speed of thought. The problem is what often happens is the wrong tool is used. So often reports are used for analytics, and analytics may be used for reports. Especially when reports are used for analytics, you get what we call the cycle of pain, which is the end user goes back on the reporting team to keep asking for more reports. They need another cut of the data. They want to cut this way, hits a backlog. It begs another question. It's hard to get done. When the answer comes back, it's not what they expected, so it goes back to another cycle. Very frustrating and time-consuming, and doesn't really help you get at the answer quickly. The other side of it is data gets downloaded from core systems into Excel. You get a piece of it. It's hard to slice and dice. You don't have all the data. It's hard to show management. And then this Excel spreadsheet tends to live on as a shadow system and doesn't get updated because it was hard to get. And this is sort of, when a reporting or scorecarding is used for this analytic tools, it's just hard. So Wayne's report lays out, this chart has sort of the traditional, on the left, the source systems, operational systems, machine data. Now there's all this web data, all this new stuff is creating this big data, but there's a set of source systems that are out there, have been, they're growing, there's more types of them. Traditional BI, the reporting, they may just stream into some engine or go into a warehouse. There may be a department data mart. There may be a BI server. Then there's reports and dashboards typically aimed at the casual user. That's traditional BI. What this shows is for this analytics, this discovery, this big data world, there needs to be something different. There needs to be different collection in sorting engines, which is what EMC Greenplum does, massively parallel, great indexing, really fast. And then you need these in-memory sandboxes where you can take this data and dump it in, play with it, bring in tables, get a subset, look at it, go back to something else, and try to understand the structure of it, the makeup of it. And today we're going to talk about the collection and storage of this kind of data and what kinds of problems it works best with, and then come down and show some examples from an analytic sandbox, which is inherently faster, visual, can be very mobile, aimed at the end user to really understand the data. And it's not enough just to put the data in these large analytic storehouses. You need to also enable the business person to untangle it and see the stories hidden in it. And I think this comment from Judy at Dartmouth says it really well, one of our customers. The combination of data discovery and visualization enables users to uncover hidden relationships they didn't know existed. That's the sandbox. I'll often hear, why didn't we have this data before? In fact, they did have it in a report. They just didn't see it. And that's the value of the sandbox. You can see the stories. It's lighter. It's casual. It's not political. It's all the things Wayne slide a couple back talk about. So as you push this out to end users, there's a set of things that need to be discussed. What questions are trying to be answered, who needs to answer the questions, when and where are they going to answer these questions, why can't they be answered today with the tools and data in place, and how is change going to happen once the questions are answered? As you design these systems, this is sort of the end user side coming back on the IT side, and they work together in a cycle. And if you get it right, it's answering these kinds of questions for these kinds of people in this kind of time frame. And in a minute, Mark's going to step through some examples where this is exactly what's happening. And sort of the last of the framework conceptual is the pillars. And this is a lot of the analysts have talked about this. Wayne's reports, which we've been referencing, pick up on this, that these tools need to be more visual because it's really tough for most business people to get it out of traditional reports and lists. They need to be collaborative so people can see, interact, share stories together. It needs to be interactive and intuitive. The stories ought to be easily seen, easily able to be explored. And this should be mobile. And this doesn't necessarily mean on mobile devices. This means being able to be accessed from anywhere, anytime for the business user who is working in a variety of environments. So it needs to fall into the environment where these sandbox power users are. So that's the overview. Mark, let's switch to your story, and we'll continue the dialogue. Hold on a second.
Thanks, Doug.
So we're up and running on your first slide.
Okay, you'll have to bear with me a couple of seconds. There seems to be a couple of seconds delay on getting them to
Israel.
So, yeah, I don't know what it is. Okay, so if we just say here, that's what I'm going to talk about, just the insights that come from this data. And if we move on to the next slide, we should be seeing now big data is happening. And that's one of my central messages here, that it really is happening. And not just big data is happening, but also data science is happening. Quite often in our industry, there is an awful lot of buzz that people talk about things as though they're happening and then they're really not. This is actually real, and everywhere I go, I'm seeing really serious innovation throughout our industry. For the first time in many years, whole new innovative things are appearing. And one of the things that we've tried to produce and have produced at EMC is a rather unique analytical stack. We call it the Unified Analytics Platform. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but just enough time for you to understand what we've got. And if I start from the bottom and take you through to the top, you'll see that everything we do here is based on x86 infrastructure. That is to say, we are using commodity-based hardware. It's not for us to go out and build very specific pieces of hardware to do this. We believe there's massive amounts of innovation coming based on the Intel architecture, and so we've decided to leverage that instead of things like FPGA. Built on top of that, we have the Greenplum massively parallel database, capable of scaling to, and proven to scale to many, many, many petabytes of scale, and still returning results in sub-second response time across gargantuan data sets. We also have our own Hadoop distribution, which is fully Apache compliant, and in fact is a badging of Apache compliant. We just do a few things to make it a little bit more robust. Where I'm going to come in with what Doug and his team are doing is here where you see the Catalytics program. And for those of you out there that are entrepreneurs, I think you'll find this fascinating, because the Catalytics program, of which you'll see ADVIZOR is a key partner, is basically EMC doing a take on what other people do, but saying, we're not going to try and be masters of the universe. We will focus on the data, we'll focus on processing the data, giving the results out, and we'll rely on third-party partners like ADVIZOR to visualize, mine, and analyze that data, building those complex models on top of it. One thing we have built ourselves, though, is Greenplum Chorus, and that really is a mechanism for allowing sandboxes to be discussed by all of the people you see there, the line of business users, the BI analysts, etc., etc., etc. And Chorus is really, you can liken it to Facebook for data analysts. So it's a way of people collaborating. Fascinating product into which you can then plug things like ADVIZOR visualizations, etc. And I think that's a product you're going to be hearing a lot more about fairly shortly. And what I'm going to focus on now is the transformation that's taking place, first off in business, and then I'm going to give you a few personal insights into where I've seen this transformation in my life. Let's start off, though, with defense. And just to give you an example of something that we've been working on in defense, this is actually an assets monitoring slide, which should be with you now. This replaced a number of systems that are in use by the US military, and in fact it is in fact genuinely used by the President of the United States, Mr. Obama. Not that I've met him, he probably doesn't want to meet me either, don't blame me. And what it does, it tracks up to 60,000 individual movements per minute of individual trucks, aircraft, personnel units, etc., etc. A colossal undertaking, absolutely colossal. And this type of product really wasn't possible before the days of MPP, massively parallel processing, etc. Really wasn't possible. And I'm going to show you a few more insights that I can talk about. Obviously, I can't talk too much about defense. So first of all, I'm going to talk to you where we've done something in the risk environment for those of you in banking and insurance. That should have moved on by slide. Good. And I have to show you this slide. It's a corporate slide. Anybody from EMC watching will have seen this slide before. Hopefully there won't be too many people from EMC. But basically, what we're showing you on this slide is that the underwriting risk drops according to how near time the data is and how much data you are able to bring into your risk models. So for example, prior to implementing Greenplum, a particular national mortgage underwriter in the States could only do monthly risk model updates, and you see that that's in grey. And because they could only update monthly, things like employment trends, etc., were of course becoming outdated by the end of the month. Hence the risk in underwriting those mortgages was going up significantly throughout the month. The first thing they did was brought in just traditional type reporting, really, using the Greenplum database, which meant that they could ingest data and get reports out in minutes rather than days and days and days. And then they started to get into leveraging big data. So bringing in database analytics, and you can see along the bottom there the sample types of data they were able to integrate. Things like home price trending, historical loan data, census data, etc. And Doug, I think one of the things your product can do, correct me if I'm wrong, is if you happen to have a piece of data you want to try before you bring it into your warehouse, you're able to kind of attach CSV tables and stuff like that just to augment data?
Yeah, absolutely, because that's part of the sandbox, is because it might not yet be in the big data warehouse. It might be in some other source system table, or it might be in something you just pulled down from a vendor that's a large CSV file. So yeah, our sandbox is very easy to bring those tables in and put them together, link them copied from one table to another, show them on a common plot, etc. Yeah.
Okay, that's great. Thanks. I just wanted to check I was right on that one, because obviously one thing we encourage people to do is quasi-model what they're doing before they actually go through the whole ETL process. And now I'm going to just talk to you about a sample use we found in the UK of this stage, and this is actually a very personal thing to me. That's my daughter. Her name's Bunny, and in the UK, car insurance is crazily expensive, but we're now introducing personalization. My daughter, the car she particularly wanted to drive is this one, which you should see fairly shortly, which is a Land Rover. That's a British car, so as you might imagine, it spends most of its time stationary while you wait for somebody to come and repair it. I did tell her to buy Japanese, but that's another thing. This car, to insure a vehicle that would cost about $1,000 US, UK insurers are looking for about $3,000 a year. The risk is so high. However, due to the big data phenomenon, the personalised insurance era has arrived, and her vehicle is fitted with a very tiny telemetry device. Costs about $100, and once a minute, that device broadcasts back a whole bunch of information about my daughter's car, which you should see on screen now. This is an Excel dump of what I see, which is exactly where, when, and how she's driving. And you can see there, I've highlighted one journey in orange from orange, and you can see that it talks about what location she's at, what speed she's going, what course she's on, and crucially there, highlighted in green, is whether the key was in the ignition or not, so that they can ascertain whether the vehicle has been stolen, etc., etc. Now that's a very personal piece of information. How do they use that information? Well, of course, that's where we start to get into the area of visualization and dashboarding. What you'll see in the next couple of seconds will be her personal dashboard. This is an aggregation of every piece of driving that she has done over the past 28 days, and it's a rolling, moving dashboard. You can see there overall she's rated as good, and she's cornering okay. She's not really spectacularly good there. She needs to move out into the right hand side and into the deep green in order to qualify for what we're looking for, which is a discount. And the way that this works is that the better she drives, the more money she is rebated. Crucially, she started off by paying $1,200, and every single month so far she's received a rebate of at least $60 on her driving. And they're finding in the UK that this actually means that kids drive better because they can see the benefits of it, and the benefits, of course, for them are largely in their pockets. But the benefits don't end there, because when you're talking about big data, there my daughter, of course, has got tens of thousands of individual journeys, and on top of that, the insurance companies can then aggregate how other people are driving as well, how their whole insurance base is driving. And this is an example of the sort of thing they can do there. So this is traffic management on the basis of thousands and thousands of users. You can see where the traffic is in red where there are problems, yellow where there aren't too many problems, etc. And again, it doesn't end there, because we can then start to overlay information. Rather tragically, in London, there are a lot of people have accidents when they ride bicycles, etc. And it's one of the big things. I want to encourage everybody to ride bicycles. But of course, cars do tend to hurt bicycles. And this map you're seeing here now is about 2 square miles in London, and it's the number of accidents this year so far in 2011, and going back a little bit into 2010, I'm sorry. And you can see what's automatically graphed are individual accidents. We receive that information from healthcare providers, I do apologise. And in the UK we have a thing called the National Health Service, so all accidents are logged. And you can see there are some slight accidents, some serious accidents, and of course sadly the one in red is a fatality. What they then do is map the black spots, which is where the numbers 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. are, and they're actively using that to reorganise either traffic signs or road layouts, etc., to make sure that we can reduce those accidents. So in essence, you take all of that information and you start to see that really everybody is a winner from this solution, potentially. The insurance companies get exactly the drivers that they want, because obviously the worse people drive, the more they pay, which strikes me as being completely fair. User pays. And they also get those drivers at a price that is commercially viable. In addition to that, society as a whole gains. You know, we get safer roads, fewer accidents, far reduced medical costs, which again we all start to see the benefit of in our pocket. Finally, you could say, and I believe this is very true for my daughter, that safer drivers get lots of benefits. That's my daughter on a holiday paid for literally out of her insurance rebate, and this year she will be saving more money. Of course, as with most things in society, not everyone is a winner, because the one thing that I did omit to tell you, that's me, and I paid for the insurance policy anyway, so classic with kids, even though I paid for it, she gets the rebate. So I'm now going to just quickly move on, and Doug, I'm going to need you to advance the slide here because I hit the wrong key. We just want to talk about data science in social media. And this is one of the areas where we are starting to see a really huge amount of activity within EMC and elsewhere. And I guess within social media, what we're talking here is not purely Facebook and Twitter. We're talking about joining the dots between all of these data sources that you see on the screen. Website metrics, loyalty cards, consumer profiling, even things like the weather, little esoteric pieces of information that can have a huge impact on how people spend their money, what they do with their money, what they're thinking. I'll give you a quick insight there, and this actually came from ADVIZOR. I don't think we're allowed to show this slide, but we did find a company in the UK who discovered a correlation between the weather and, pardon the pun, whether people bought a dip to go alongside the potato chips that they were buying. And they found that when it was raining in the UK, which is about 2/3 of the time, people did not buy dips when they bought their potato chips. So they started to introduce special offers of when it was raining, you could offer dips cheaper. And they found they did massively increase the uptake. So always be a little bit open in terms of the data sources you're prepared to consider. And again, using ADVIZOR, as Doug said earlier, you can pull data sources in, see if they affect your model, and then if they do, reverse them back into the warehouse. So the sort of things that we're talking about capturing here, you should see a slide now that's showing real-time interactions. This is one of our catalytic partners, someone that ADVIZOR will be working alongside. These guys capture literally every single mouse click and mouse move from a website into a database, and then can predictively model what people will react to best. So they have information about clients, etc. Fantastic product. That's one source of information that you should really be looking at, and there's a lot of data there. Once you start to capture this information, you then come on to the things that are really start to get people excited, which is, well, you know, how do you actually visualize this stuff? How do you capture brand opinion, brand awareness? And the slide you should be seeing now will be an ADVIZOR slide, and this is the feelings of a subset of about 50,000 people in the UK and how they felt about a particular brand of potato chips. Green in this case meant they were very engaged with the brand. They really liked this new flavor. They brought out a new flavor, potato chips. Red meant they strongly disliked it. And purple and blue kind of meant they didn't really have a feeling. They'd eat the chips again if they had to, but they weren't going to run to the store to buy them. Now, this type of visualization, the bigger the square, the more engaged with the brand that person is. So the brand ambassadors in the top left-hand corner, thankfully, the bulk of those were actually thought the chips weren't too bad. You would be kind of worried if the people in the top left-hand corner were all red, because you may well have just released a complete turkey of a flavor. So moving on from that, and actually that is not a bad idea, is it, turkey flavored, Chris? I haven't thought of them before, actually.
Yeah, they'll probably do better in the US than in the UK, Mark, though.
Do you know, as I thought that, I'm just suddenly thinking, my God, I should give this all up and become a brand manager. Believe me, there are a lot of people saying...
To the PowerPoint.
There are a lot of people saying I should give this up, but none of them are saying be a brand manager, so that's not a problem. So here, for example, is some other sentiment that we can capture. This is, again, it's another catalytic partner that is able to hunt through what people are saying on the social media platforms about a brand. Here we were looking for Virgin Atlantic Dubai, and we were just trying to pick up and say, well, you know, what are these people doing, etc. And in fact, this bottom thing here, selling 2 London return flight tickets for sale, was an interesting case in point of things that you discover, because these guys didn't realize that these were actually staff members selling tickets they weren't supposed to be selling, which is kind of amusing, but at the same time useful information to have if you know that that's out there. The sort of things one can then do is start adding in additional information. When you know what people are talking about your brand, you can start to add in and say, well, where do they have these feelings? And geographical brand feelings are really very important to marketeers. You can see here, red is it's a hot spot, green is people really like it, red is they're less engaged. So you can see here in the UK, the bit that's the deepest red is a country called Wales. It's part of the United Kingdom, and the people there were just not engaged with this particular brand. That actually meant that what the marketeers could do was start to get into micro-marketing and cross-comparisons. And Doug, I think if we can switch to the next slide, you can just briefly run us through the power of ADVIZOR within here and how we can cross-compare, please.
Yeah, so Mark, this is concept of visual discovery, and a couple slides later we'll look at predictive modeling, but this is an example of where we're looking at sales returns over time, and then some of the factors underneath it. One of these is the Twitter posts about a brand. Another one might be Facebook or calls, or just a number of factors, and you've got price movements here. So these are the things that are related to the sales movement, and this is actually the sales movement across time, and you can sort of visually see that there are patterns in this. When this one, you know, there's this is up, and then this comes up, so you can visually explore and kind of see where it's headed. And it's sort of this sandbox discovery. You're trying to understand which factors are aligned with the results, and then we'll come back and we'll do some predictive modeling to try to mathematically score and kind of go into more detail in a couple of slides.
Great. Thanks, Doug. So we should be moving on to the next slide, which would be great. And again here, one of the things that you should be seeing now, a slide about understanding the social media, visualizing social media trends. One of the things that we see a lot is that different people think different ways. There are some people for whom it's great just to have a listing. Those people, thankfully, are fewer and fewer and far between now. Here, what we've got is a really simple way of seeing where is this noise coming from. Twitter, as you can see, is top, followed by generic blogs, ahead of Facebook, interestingly enough. And you can see also to the right-hand side there an extremely visual way of charting whether people are negative, neutral, or positive about a brand. And again, this visualization as a brand manager, if I've got too much in one area, I can start to think very quickly, what can I do about it? And that's really where, again, the big data starts to come down to small data that allows you to generate these huge insights.
And for example, just if you look at the Hawk brand, just take this as an example. These are negative posts. This is over a several-month period. You know, they got strong and then they fell off and then they cycled back and got strong again. So there's periods when the intensity of the negative posts are higher, then there's periods when they are softer. And this is the kind of thing you want to relate, obviously, back to results like sales or other activity levels.
And that you could even find the weather has an impact there. You just don't know. That's the good thing about big data, and the important thing is you need to start bringing lots of data into your correlation models to make sure you're getting the right results.
Yeah, and here we've got trying to look at market influencers, which is some work we've been doing with big data. And just picture these are in one of these social networks, there are authors, there are people who initiate Twitter's, blogs, posts, and the goal is to find them because they're the ones that get the voice out. And in this case, we've just basically each node here is a Twitter source, for example. The links are showing where they're going out to. So, for example, picture these are fictitious names, but MJ is a huge source of content. A bunch of it's going out to this person who then sends it over to Carlos, who then sends it out to a bunch of people over here. Here are Twitter feeders who are receivers, not senders, and there's a flow back and forth in here. So this is a very visual way of trying to identify, this is a small subset of a large amount of data, what the patterns are, and are there sources and nodes of influence you care about. And if this was live, you could circle just with the mouse, grab Carlos, and you'd see what realm of other players in this media space he's having influence on. You can look at this in lists and tables, but this just jumps and you see patterns really quickly. And you'll see maybe across brand very different set of influence of the major influencers. Some is very distributed. Some, like this particular one, is very concentrated.
Hey, Doug, can I just say something here that might fascinate you? I don't know if I told you this, but in the UK we have a company that used this, and they used it to actually identify who the big social influencers were. And rather than run a competition and pay for that competition to be advertised in the press, etc., they actually just gave the prize to a couple of these big social media people to give away, and they found they got exactly the same result as if they'd have advertised it. So really quite fascinating.
Yeah, because if you can find these people and get them on your team, it can be very effective.
Absolutely. So one of the key things that you're really looking for, you are actually looking to identify clusters of users. And this is something that is actually, I think you can talk to how this is built into your software, Doug. But basically, let's say I wanted to launch an Etihad Airways credit card. I'd really be looking to say, can I find the people that are, really likely to take me up on that card? In that case, if you run it through a model, the model will come back to you and say that the people that are most likely to take up this credit card are age 35 to 45, they're male, they classically make 100+ month Facebook posts, and they like Manchester City Football Club and travel. And I think, Doug, you've got a slide. In fact, the next slide shows predictive modeling, right?
Right. So on that page before, you sometimes will see clusters of behavior, which you could circle on the chart. We would call that visual discovery. Here's an example of where we then, modeled, and in our world, our modeling is very point and click. So you have all this, the data that we've been seeing, the posts, the maybe the merchandising, maybe the calls, all of that, the sentiments. And this is an example of some work we've done where the blue line is the actual sales results, the red line is the forecasted, and there's a set of factors that came up, and it's here very clearly the number of positive posts has an impact on sales, and kind of here's the lift bucket. So yeah, the idea here is a very quick way to figure out which of these factors really matter if your outcome is higher sales, and this is a very, very good correlation between the actual in blue and the forecasted in red, and this in our world would complement the visual discovery. And you now identified the factors. You could take this back, as Mark just suggested, and then find the the group of customers that have had these characteristics. You know, they've been posting positively, they've done this and whatnot, and sort of that's the beauty of combining the visual discovery along with the predictive modeling, because you've got to really come at it from two angles, and one reinforces the other.
Fantastic. And I think as we move on now, one of the key things that certainly the trends that we're seeing is that people are talking very much now about micro-targeting products or services with focus campaigns. You know, I'm 47. When I was a kid, of course, there was really only the newspapers and TV and radio were the only ways you could reach people. So you classically planned a 3, 4, 5, 6, and even 12-month campaign to get your message out. What we're finding now is people are planning 3, 4, 5-week campaigns, micro campaigns, highly targeted. And the new generation of marketeers are really tweaking these campaigns very, very quickly. But of course, you can only do that if you're able to actually measure what's going on, if you're able to look at what you're seeing, get that feedback quickly into an analytical tool, into an analytical data warehouse, and then churn through that data very quickly to tweak your models. And what you see here is exactly that in ADVIZOR. And Doug, how would you tweak that? It's simple to tweak, right?
Right, it's simple, and basically this is just a visual display of this whole grid. It's called a heat map, is all of the campaign activities, and then the colored ones are the ones that had a response percent over a target. The gray are the ones that were below the target. This gives you a really quick snapshot that in this campaign area, these are the specific messages sent out. Some of them did really well, but they're smaller squares, so the more focused, targeted messages within this campaign did really well. These boxes are bigger. The broader, less focused messages within this campaign did pretty poorly. Over here, there were a couple of campaigns that were big and did reasonably well. So this gives you, a manager in particular, a snapshot of what worked in the context of the whole portfolio of everything. And then you obviously can drill down and select on any one of them. And what you'd want to do is repeat the ones that are successful and understand the segments of customers it worked with, and then sort of maybe focus away from this big, expansive things that didn't do particularly well. And you can see this in like lists in bar charts, but this particular chart shows a subset of a portfolio against the whole portfolio in a way that our clients can just sort of get it really quickly, and then from that comes action.
And I think that's really crucial. It's insight to action very quickly. So really, what are we talking about changes in this particular world? We're talking about more campaigns, much shorter campaigns, much less costly, because they're targeted at very specific people. And what that all translates down into is lower risk. You don't run the risk of spending, as I believe one major corporation did many, many years ago, changing the recipe of your favorite drink and realize that you've toileted hundreds of millions of dollars on something people didn't like. So very quickly, I'm just going to run you through another area where big data and data science is having a huge impact, and that's in the healthcare industry. I believe very strongly that the era even of personalized medicine is coming, and what we're seeing here very strongly now is that big data analytics are really, really accelerating healthcare 2.0 for evidence-based care providers. So rather than treating people down just exactly the same pathway, i.e. everybody who's got disease X, give them disease Y, we're now starting to see, first of all, with enhanced BI reporting courtesy of Green Plum, we're starting to see people's results turned around faster and treatments turned around faster. Then what we're doing is we're really pushing in all of this in-database analytics and additional data. Drug interaction predictions, people with different weights, heights, sizes, racial makeups will react differently to drugs. We're able to take that into account. Where they live, geographical factors count, individual patient history counts, social and economic factors. This wasn't possible until the tools that we're seeing now for big data. And I'm going to finish up right now with something actually really rather personal. And I don't know if any of you guys have heard of this lady, but her name is Dame Judi Dench. Any of you that have watched the James Bond movies will recognize her. Well, there's a link between my father, that's my late father, the guy holding the camera, Dame Judi Dench, and me. Now, the interesting link is that all three of us are highly prone to a really horrible thing called macular degeneration. And basically what this means is you go blind, and you go blind in a rather horrible, slow way. And I'm in the top 5% at risk. How did I find that out? I found that out courtesy of big data and a site that leverages big data, which is called www.23andme.com. Probably the best $99 I've ever spent, because it actually comes back and says where you stand within the risk of many, many, many of these types of diseases. So had I not have done that, I would never have realized that I could prevent this disease, or of course I could let it carry on and get it treated. Now I'm now taking 82 milligrams a day of Bayer aspirin, which has taken me from the top 5% of risk to the bottom 5% of risk. And really the pivotal message here is that that is so much cheaper prevention rather than the cost of actually having to treat this type of thing. Prevention much better than cure, and I believe you'll see personalized medicine will be one of the huge developments that comes out of big data as we start to see these things develop. So is this science fiction? No, it's absolutely not. None of this is science fiction at all. I would confidently say out of the 150 plus people watching this today, you all have this data out there. The technology does exist. And the tools are now there in a combination of EMC and some of our partners, including ADVIZOR, of course. It's there. You can use it. You really ought to start thinking about doing it and reaping the benefits. That's kind of all I had to say. Hopefully you've enjoyed my bit. Doug?
Yeah, so we have another 15-20 minutes where we can take questions if you'd like to stay on. Well, there have been a couple of questions about what does it take to implement one of these. So, Mark, let me ask you first on the Greenplum side to put one of these massively parallel high-performance analytic engines in, and then I'll come back from the analytic sandbox side. So what's it look like on your side?
Well, I think first of all the most important thing that it takes to implement is a little bit of vision, and that's possibly the hardest thing to find. The technology side from Greenplum is designed to be easy to implement. We have on the Greenplum website, we have the ability for you to download what we call the community edition. That's basically something for you to play with it, test it out. It doesn't cost you anything. Of course, we've got Greenplum salespeople that will give you advice and help to get yourself up and running. But first thing you need, get that little bit of vision. You know, I think they used to say, feel the fear and do it anyway. And that is where I would start, honestly. But technology-wise, it really is not as difficult as most people seem to think. Very easy. Doug?
Hey, Mark, and there's a follow-up question on your side. Can you give us any specific examples of clients currently using Greenplum for these kinds of things?
Oh, that's from somebody from Oracle, isn't it? I don't. Well, there are plenty of references and case studies on the website, but I don't think it'd be right for me to give them here. I mean, basically, we've got them in all industries. We've got over 250, 300 clients, big clients, live worldwide now. I'm down here in Israel with one of the biggest department stores down here. In the UK, we've got one of the biggest retailers, but I'm kind of a bit nervous about giving specifics out on this.
Yeah, I can understand. So the answer is go to the website. On the ADVIZOR side, implementing is actually really quick. I mean, we're an analytic sandbox. We have a connector to Greenplum. We have connectors to Oracle, SQL Server, Excel, Access, wherever your data is. Back to that Wayne Eckerson model at the beginning. We just grab it, load it into memory, and you can quickly do things to copy fields from table to table, roll up tables, set up charts, link the tables together so they basically work as one big mesh of tables. So, I mean, our setup's pretty easy, and we work closely with Greenplum in these examples to make sure that we're getting the right data into the sandbox. You obviously don't load the whole Greenplum warehouse into an in-memory sandbox, so you've got to think through, what sets of data you're trying to look at. Other questions? We've got one. Where did you get the social media results for positive, neutral, negative comments? I'm not specifically sure where they came from. Mark, do you want to try that? I actually, if not, I'll
we actually have, as part of our catalytics program, at Greenplum, we have a third-party vendor that has built a full-on sentiment engine that allows you to categorize them and will categorize them for you. It's a learning engine, very, very sophisticated. If you care to send me an email, mark.sear@emc.com, I'll gladly put you in touch.
Yeah, or just type in the question in the lower right, and we'll pick that up and get back to you. And from the advisor perspective, our clients, there are a number of vendors who do this. I think they, Mark, essentially effectively read the text of the Twitters or the blogs, and they index it in a way, and they group it based on the content of what's being written. Isn't that what they do?
Yeah, well, basically what you have to do is you have to have an underlying layer that understands the difference between orange, for example, orange paint, orange county, orange air guitars, and over a period of time the training takes place. So it starts off in a very manual mode for the first week to 10 days until a number of posts are seen. Once the engine starts to understand what individual words mean and the semantic means, then it can start to auto-categorize them itself. So it's a taxonomy in combination with some very sophisticated algorithms on the more sophisticated ones. In the bottom ones, they just do straight word counts and say, well, this is positive, that is negative. The cheaper ones tend to have the problem, of course, that the word sick means something very different if you're 47 than it does if you're 11. If my 11-year-old boy says something sick, he thinks it's absolutely brilliant. If I say it is, I think it's completely horrible. So a little bit of semantics to take care of there. So, but yeah, fundamentally simple technology.
Yeah, and when we, in the advisor side, when we pick up this data, it's literally just, it's the rows of the tweets or the rows of the posts or whatever it is. It could be a bunch of millions of them, and each one has a sentiment value that was attached by this engine. And then it's very easy to pop it into those charts, which then give you the ability, as we saw with that one Hawk brand, to see that, hey, there's cyclicality to these negative posts. And now let's look underneath and try to understand that either visually or with modeling. It is another question. What tools are used to capture website actions to a database? For example, the insurance example that you had mentioned.
The one that I mentioned there for the website action is a product called Celebris, CELBRUS.com. Fantastic tool, quite remarkable. That pushes the data at high speed and in real time into Greenplum, and then it's able to dynamically modify the website. So to give you an example of the sort of thing they can do, I saw this happen live. They monitored somebody who was shopping. This lady picked up a pair of jeans, put it in her basket, then obviously decided they were too expensive, took them out of her basket, went to another couple of bits of the website, then went back to the jeans, put them in her basket, and then took them out of her basket. At that point, after the second take out of the basket, they offered her a discount of $10 on those jeans, and she promptly bought 2 pairs. So that was all taking place in real time on the basis of knowing what was happening within that particular session, pushing it into the database, recycling it through some fairly sophisticated but very easy to implement algorithms, and pushing back the result. And then the outcome of that data will go into hourly ADVIZOR-based reporting, so they can see which sections of the website are performing well, badly, and which products, and then they'll use that to modify those offers in that area. So it becomes very iterative, very real-time, and very highly focused on making profit.
I think what we're seeing is this is back to the framework slide from earlier on, where these are the largely the Greenplum parallel massively indexed databases that can store all this stuff. And here's the analytics sandbox we were talking about. What's driven a lot of this is this advent of all these, a ton of vendors working with in the social media area and the website area to collect like literally all this stuff that happens. And this would be in Wayne's framework down here, external data. And there's another question. Are you saying there are publicly available databases we can go into and play with to test the concepts we discussed? And most of these vendors do have sort of trial versions or web-based things where you can upload some data and sort of see how it works. It's not going to do everything you want on the free side. And as Mark mentioned, these have training periods, especially in some of the sentiments. But yeah, there are a lot of, in the catalytics section of the EMC Green Plug site has a number of them. There's a bunch of others out there, but this is what's sort of driven a lot of the need for these bigger analytics engines and these sandboxes, because all this stuff now exists, and if you can make use of it, as we've seen in the examples, you can get big benefits to your business in a lot of different areas. We discussed just 3 today: insurance risk, the consumer marketing, and then the healthcare. But there are tons of other of these kinds of marketing and operational problem areas across a variety of industries where this is happening. Other question, and Mark, let me have you add on to that before we jump to the next question.
Yeah, and I think, the truth is that 2 years ago there were probably 5 or 6 key areas that one would speak about. Now it's kind of everywhere. I think the more that people see what can be done, then a bit like the one report begets another 3 reports. The more that people see, the more that people want to do. And also there's a really big push now for open data as well, and that's certainly affecting us in the UK greatly, because we're now seeing that everything's out there. Exam results are out there. How is my child doing at school is out there. How does the effect of what foods I eat, what does that do to their IQ? All of that sort of information is becoming available, and the more of that becomes available, obviously the more pervasive the technology becomes.
So there's a question about the charts, the ADVIZOR charts that were shown in Mark's presentation. Those are all standard charts. So our product is it's a Microsoft app that has an in-memory layer that runs either on a Windows server with a browser or an iPad interface, or runs on a client, which is our authoring environment. There are 15 charts. They're all standard charts with interfaces, so they can have different looks and feels, but each of those charts is literally a point-and-click setup. And it takes a minute to set up one of those charts once the data is loaded, which is why we are a sandbox, because you can put up one of those charts with the positive and negative posts, maybe align one way it doesn't show much. You just take it out and maybe try the one with the nodes and links because it's a different view of the data, or the heat map. So part of what we've tried to do with the sandbox is have this collection of visualization charts that are very easy to set up, and they link together, and when we're authoring, we're often literally trying a chart because you need to see how it looks with the data. You can adjust how, some of the parameters of it, drop to another chart, because you're basically taking the data, it's just different ways of showing it. So I guess the specific answer to the question is those charts are all they're part of the application, and the setup is a point-and-click wizard to get at them. More questions. Yeah, can you discuss the predictive analytics features that you showed? There's a lot more data for that on the ADVIZOR website, www.advisorsolutions.com, or let me just sort of move to the page with the contact information. Our predictive analytics, what we've tried to do is make it very easy to use, so a business end user, the people typically doing this are customer insight managers, risk managers, product marketing managers. They're people who have MBAs or maybe marketing background. They don't have statistics background, most of these end users. So if you were to give them a high-end tool like a SAS or an SPSS, they're not going to be able to use it. So what we've done is we've taken a rich modeling tool and embedded it. It's from a company called KXEN, and we've embedded it in a very simple interface so a business person can literally select things on the charts, point and click, and run the model, and it comes back with key fields, lift buckets, but it's all in a visual, very end-user focused way. So our approach to this is, and it's a rich modeling tool. Literally, like that regression-based model, it ran probably 25 or 30 models behind the scenes. It picked the one that has the best fit and then gave the output from that. So it's a rich tool, but the interface is literally point and click, and that particular forecast we showed is probably thinking through the problem, but actually running the model is probably literally a 5 or a 10-minute exercise once you've got the data understood and you've got a framework for what you're trying to do. Yeah, Mark, I don't know if you want to jump in on that as well.
No, I think you covered it beautifully. I mean, the key thing is to predictive analytics is to make sure that you understand what it is you're looking to predict, and again, make sure there's a sensible business use for it. But the other key to it is being able to do it quickly. You need to be able to do it quickly, and preferably, I believe, put the power in the hands of the business people, not into the hands of just one or two people that sit in the corner and might churn out a model in weeks. You want those models out as fast as you can.
I think the thing is, you're thinking about this as an analytics sandbox for this type of user, risk manager, customer insight manager, product marketing manager, that class of people. It needs to be rich because they understand data. They totally can understand stories in the data. They need to be able to go deep, but they're not going to be able to pick which version of the neural network algorithm it is. It's not what you want these people doing or thinking about. And if that's the requirement, you end up with, it's a handoff to some stats expert, which then ends up with another version of the cycle of pain, which is what, this whole theory of these analytic databases with these sandboxes that are easy to use is all about. It's trying to make that easy for the business end user to work with the data, see the stories, and explore it. We have time for another question. If one comes in, do we already through most of them? Hey, Mark. So let's. Any closing comments? We're right at the 1 hour point in about a minute. So we said we'd finish. Final comments. Wait, another question just came in. It is, can you discuss the price? Is the pricing usage based? I don't know if we want to talk about pricing here. Our pricing is solution-based. We usually, together we sell solutions with professional services and software to solve problems. I don't know if, Mark, you want to add on that from your side?
Oh, the last thing I want to do is, I don't know anything about pricing. I'll leave that to the salesman.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Closing comments, Mark.
No, most enjoyable. Really enjoyed it. First time I've ever sat in a bedroom in Israel broadcasting to America.
Way to go. And I would just say, appreciate all of your time. It's been a well-attended webinar. The engagement's been good. A lot of great questions. And if you have more questions, you've got my contact here. We'll get back to you, and we'll follow up with any we missed to come. And we will have the recording out within about a week, along with the slides of both Mark's and my presentation. They'll be up on the website. So sit tight, about a week. We'll have them out. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time today.
Cheers.